Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Educational Norm. Today we have Madisyn Millikin. She's a former student of mine at Kent State, and we're trying something new today because Madisyn is going to be graduating here soon from college and is doing her student teaching. And she is obviously concerned about the education world like everybody else is, and obviously where she's going to land, after she's done with college. So I thought I'd give it a shot and put her name out there and say, hey, if you're looking for a quality candidate, here's somebody that you should look at. So, Madisyn, welcome today.
Thank you. Good
I'm going to
morning.
have you start just by introducing yourself. I'm going to treat this like an interview since I've done a few of those. And whatever you want to say about your background and where you want to land is perfectly fine. Um, and then I'll just make sure I turn that loose to the world and expose the world to Madisyn as much as we can.
So I am a senior at Kent State University. I am currently working towards my bachelor's in middle childhood education with concentrations in ELA and social studies. Okay, so I'm from a small town located in northeastern Ohio, so I'm really open to getting into bigger districts, but I've also been in small districts and I've been in inner city school districts in Akron, for example. I've been near Twinsburg area, Kent area, Mentor area. So I'm really open to all the different experiences, all the different types of school districts, large or small, and just overall what districts have to offer because I think there's so many different opportunities at each individual school district.
I love that. And knowing the town you came from, there are probably more cows than people. And
Yes.
and
Yes.
so having that understanding of the rural community, but also working in Akron as an example, I think gives you quite a diverse background for you to be able to fit in pretty much anywhere. I
Oh,
love
yes.
that.
Percent.
So tell me a little bit about your experiences currently, because I know you're subbing right now and you're getting ready for your student teaching. So tell me about your subbing experience that you're currently doing.
Yeah, so I started subbing at Grand Valley Local Schools, which is where I went to school. I was doing K through 12. I actually started off with elementary education and I requested to be in the elementary. They love elementary subs because nobody wants to sub for elementary. So I did quickly learn though, I really do love elementary, but then I got placed in the middle school and I was like, I really, really like this and I enjoy being with middle schoolers. They still care about what their teacher thinks and they still want to do good for you and believe in you because you believe in them, but they're a little bit more independent and they don't need you as much as an elementary student does.
I feel that we're on the same wavelength because my certification is K9, and I thought I always wanted to be a second grade teacher, but I got placed for my student teaching in middle school, and it was the same thing. I go, this is where I belong, mainly because I acted like a middle schooler, so I thought that was probably a good fit.
Yep, you gotta love them, do
You,
it.
yeah, there was a meme just the other day that said, people that love kids go into elementary, people that love content go into high school, and people that are a little bit crazy go into middle school.
Yeah, I 100% believe that is true.
So with your background again, I know you're going to be certified in ELA and social studies. Which one of those do you prefer? And what other things would you be involved with if you got it involved with a school?
So I actually don't really have a preference. I did really want to teach science. I think I'll add that. I know I have the endorsement. I think there's pros and cons to both of them. I know with ELA, there's more curriculum and standards that you have to follow because of the state testing. So I feel like history, there's a little bit more leeway, but I do feel it's all about how you go into it and it's about the way that you teach it and the mindset that you have. Like if you're for any lesson that you have, you need to be able to answer the question, why am I learning this? Because that's what kids want to know. They don't really care about what you're learning. They just want to know why they're spending time on it. And I do think, so I know I am doing my student teaching at Chardon Local Schools and they are doing just an ELA curriculum, but it's all focused on history so they can hit two things at once. And I really like that way too, because then you're doing both, but you're getting the benefits of both.
I love the cross-curricular thing, and I knew that I'd worked with Chardon a little bit myself, and I knew that was coming down the road. And they are doing some good things there, without a doubt. It's just sad that they can't get a new building. I know I don't want to get political, but it's hard for people to be able to pay for something new
Yeah,
when you have something already in place that they are making work. And
yeah,
um, but it is an old school, and it's something to consider down the road as we're getting older as adults. My kids are no longer in school. Do we still support schools? Yes, of course we do.
yeah.
So your current work, you're going to be at Chardon. You're going to be, it sounds like in a cross-curricular type setting. Are there other extracurricular things that you've done in the past that you'd be willing to supervise, be involved with, work with kids in, whatever that may be?
Yeah, so I'm really hoping I can get involved in coaching. So either volleyball, track, cross country, or cheerleading. I'm pretty open to, especially like bigger schools. I know they have sports that my school never had, so you can try it out. I also really am interested in like student council or student government or kindness club, anything really that is outside of school that you get to work with students. I'm all for it. I feel like you get to build those relationships with them and you get to see a side of them that you don't get to see during school hours or during um classes and teaching.
Well, one of the activities that I did in your class was to do a web search for all my students to find out what I could find when I do a search because I want to make sure that your web is cleaned up and you're not showing things that shouldn't be. And what I found about you was that your senior year, you were class president and you gave a speech for graduation. And it was the first time you ran for any kind of school office, wasn't it?
No, actually.
Oh,
Yeah, I was in National Honor Society. I was president then and student council. I was
oh, okay.
president, but there weren't a lot of contestants running against me, so I never
Don't say
actually
that. You beat
really,
everybody.
yeah, but I never really had to fight for it, I would say. I mean, there were like two or three, but I'm sure at a bigger school district, you have a lot more people that you're running against. So but people also believing you because if they didn't, then somebody would run against me.
Right. And the thing with small towns, they know you. You know that
Yep.
there's no hiding in a small town. Everybody knows you and your family and everybody else. So
Yep.
it really is a matter of, is she a good character? Does she have our best interest in mind? That also leads me to another thing about working in small schools. And you sort of hinted on it just on what you're willing to do. In a small school, you're asked to do a lot of things outside of your teaching. And I could just tell by what you said you were willing to do that you have that in your mentality already. And so talk a little bit about, how did you balance everything that you do? Because I know that you have a lot of things going on in your life. How do you balance your work and life um, in one to make it work for you and to keep your mental stability?
So I've learned a lot the past 3 years. I'm sure there's more to learn. It's definitely hard. I will say I did this after school program for a year at Grand Valley, and it was absolutely amazing. But you spend 3 hours with the students after school. So that's a long day for the students, especially if they're getting on the bus from 6 a.m. until 6 p.m. or whatever the time was that we're leaving. And you really get to learn like about their families, what their struggles are, why they're struggling in school. Just everything all adds up in one. And I remember and I still do, I think about it every day, like just taking that home. And at some point, you really have to say, I'm doing the best that I can possibly do. There's nothing that I can be doing better. But at the same time, there always is things that you can work on, but it's just learning how to balance that. Like, okay, when I'm in the school, I'm going to be doing everything I can for my students, but when I get home, like that's supposed to be me time, and I have to be the best version of myself for my students to be the best versions of themselves.
So you mentioned this program, but you didn't tell me what the program was. So what was that program that you were doing after school?
So, I don't want to say the name of it, but it is a program and it's worked so it's more like enrichment activities. So we give the students some food when they get here because that is a long time. Like it's their dinner. And then we have outside activities. We have like gym activities. We do some tutoring or one-on-one work, stuff that a lot of kids can't get during the school day because it's just so hectic. And, teachers are working with 30 students and don't get to have a lot of that one-on-one time. So it's helping them with anything that they need and also trying to get these students out of their shell and working together. We have it's grade 5 through 8, and we noticed originally that a lot of the eighth graders would stick together. Like everybody had their little cliques, and we were trying to say, like, hey, you know what? We're a family here. We talk to everybody. And now it's the little things like we had an eighth grader teaching a fifth grader how to throw a football. And before that, eighth grader was like, that fifth grader's so not cool. But over time, then they build that, and now the fifth grader looks up to him like he's a brother.
Hmm. I love that cross grade level activity idea, and it works at any school at any level. And we did that a few times in our athletics, especially, and to see the girls that came into camp at volleyball then come and watch a varsity volleyball match and interact with the varsity player afterwards is special. You could tell it means a lot to them.
Yeah.
So that's a great program. So I also know just from our talks that you do a lot now to keep your wellness in check, to make sure that you're doing what you need to do for you to be the best for your students. So that's the part that I'm interested in. I know you're very label conscious. You look at your labels and make sure you tell me a little bit about your wellness now and how you keep yourself healthy for a school year.
Yeah, so for a school year, I know it's a very simple thing. Vitamins, other teachers used to tell me, and I was like, no, I don't need them. And then once I got into the school district or into the schools, especially during flu season, I was like, yeah, these teachers know what they're talking about.
Right.
I also just wake up super early every morning and I do everything that I need to get done. So I will wake up around like 4:30 in the morning and go to the gym because I found that not even like I'm not a huge big you have to work out, but even just doing something in the morning for you and not for anybody else. Because during your school day, you're doing everything for the teachers that you're working with to make sure you're a good team player. You're doing everything for the students, for the administration. You just need to do something during your day that's for you. And I found that when I try to do that after school, I was exhausted. I had no motivation. I would drive by the gym, I'd be like, yeah, I'm too tired. But something about waking up and doing it beforehand just gave me so much more motivation to do something for you and focus on you and take care of yourself, especially same during breaks. I know it's really hard to just relax because you want to spend time with family that you haven't gotten to see. But there's also that time that even if it's just at the end of the night, take an hour to read or scroll on social media, something that you want to do.
Those are things that we sometimes forget because we are exhausted and you just want to go home and lay down, get a bite to eat, lay down and just chill in front of a TV and not think. But there's a intentionality you need to have when it comes to your own personal wellness. So you're taking the right steps right away. I know that first year of teaching, I was sick all the time. And it wasn't because I wasn't doing things. It was because I let my system get worn down. And it's really easy to do. So
Yeah.
that's great advice. And it's good to know that you have that already in mind going into the work world. Uh, I'm going to switch modes just a little bit because we're going to talk about your prepping for this teaching thing that you're about to do. I know you're getting ready for some tests that you have to take, which I know you love. And and all your experiences at college, like I said, you were a former student of mine and I got to know you fairly well and you asked a ton of questions about the teaching profession. So I know that you are invested in this pathway. So tell me a little bit about your prep for the test and what you are expecting at this point with the test itself.
So the test, so there's four OAEs total just to be certified in two contents. They are one is Foundations of Reading that a lot of, I believe, K through 9 has to take. So if you teach anywhere within that, you do have to take that, unfortunately. Well, fortunately, you get to have the opportunity to take that and test that what you know.
Good answer.
Unfortunately, it's a lot of work at the end of the day. I know I took my professional one. I passed that no problem. However, I have taken my ELA one and my phonics one, and I don't know the scores yet. Unfortunately, you don't get them back for about a month and a half. So that right away is pretty stressful. It's pretty time consuming because you do have to think sometimes you don't pass your first try, and that's okay. I know majority of people that haven't passed their first try, but it's you have to weigh your options. Do you want to assume that you didn't pass and study more, or do you want to go with your gut and say, I did really good because I would say I'm studying about on top of teaching and doing coursework, I would say about 3 hours a day. For these, they're very intense. A practice test is about 3 to 4 hours, depending on how quick you can go. I unfortunately am a very, very slow processor. It takes me a lot of time to read questions and really think about them. So I noticed that I was running out of time on these tests. But then I also got to learn there's a huge learning process because you get to learn, okay, so some students aren't great test takers. So is that a really fair ball game when you want to have that in the classroom? And I'm also really focusing on understanding the instructional strategies that the tests are saying that these work. So over time, it's like, okay, these work, these are proven to work. That's what you should focus on while also being open-minded of some different things. But it's also focusing to, instead of like the test aspect, I try to think of all the different ways to or connect the content directly to classroom practices. So I'm like, okay, in the end, I really am learning so much about this and I get to learn about it and then teach it one day. So it really is worth it. It's just a matter, and everybody goes through it, but it's just a lot.
Well, I'm old. I did not have to go through it. I did not have to take a test to be a teacher. It wasn't until I want to say my 12th year in education, I decided I'll just take it just to see what it's like, to see what people are doing. And I took, these were up in Michigan, so it was probably slightly different. But there was a teacher there that had taken it 7 times. And she told me this just before I started taking the test. And I'm going, oh my gosh, I don't want to retake this. And she's been doing it for 7 times. So I got panicked like immediately. But, in prepping and doing what you're doing, you're probably doing a lot more than most to get ready for it, I would
Yeah.
think. Yeah, but that's you. That's your personality. You're going to make sure you do everything you can.
Yeah, and
Um,
I do know, unfortunately, I know a lot of people that have left teaching from this, from not being able to pass tests, or even after they do pass tests, they are so mentally drained because that was a lot, especially when you're working on that as your student teaching, as you're also trying to have a job. Like that's just, it all adds up. But also know teachers that haven't even gotten to be teachers because of it. And I just feel like you have to have that mindset. Okay, I am doing it for my students or for my future students that I'm gonna have.
Well, and I like how you put that. It's teachers that aren't teachers yet because there are people out there that are highly qualified to do the job, and for whatever reason, the test is their obstacle. So I think that there are people that can handle it, and that's the content-based piece that we can always work on. You can't change a personality to the point where they're going to be a good teacher. Either you have it or you don't in some cases. I do think that there's growth that you can do, and I've seen you grow over these years that I've known you. But you always had a base. You could talk to people. You were a people person, which is something that a lot of people aren't with going to this world of education. That's what you have to be.
Yeah, 100%.
So,
I will say, adding to that, we actually did it. So we used 240 tutoring. And originally, it will say for anybody that wants to try it out, you take a practice test to see what you score, and then it tells you what you need to work on. And I was really stressed about taking these tests. And my brother, who is an engineer, was like, how hard can it be? He actually took it. He got about 95% on his Foundations of Reading one, which I was like, seriously? But he is able to memorize things so quickly. So little things like that he never forgot. Now, he did say afterwards, he said, that doesn't make me a good teacher because I can memorize.
right.
And that really hit me like, yeah, some people may not know this, but they're going to know it when they have to teach those standards and work on it every single day.
Without a doubt. I would hire more for personality and potential that because if you are willing to learn, you can learn what you need to learn.
100%.
So tell me a little bit more about your sub experience. I know you're doing that right now, I think in a bigger district, if I'm correct. And that subbing is an eye opener for a lot of people. So what have you learned as a sub in a big building in probably one of the biggest districts in Ohio?
So I definitely learned that where you are at and the people around you matter more than anything else. I was blessed and I got into this district and I absolutely loved it. From day one, the principal reached out to me. She said, "Can I give you a tour of the building? I know you're from a small town school." To me, that was like, okay, you're a principal of over 300 students the day before school, and you're going to reach out to me to give me. So that honestly just changed my mindset. And I was like, I really like being here and I got to be introduced to all the teachers. So then just making those connections with, I want to go on the teacher aspect and then the student aspect, making those connections with the teachers, especially like when I had free periods, like my lunch periods, and it would be 50 minutes and I only needed 20 minutes. I got to go sit in to all these classrooms and watch the teachers teach and get to work with them. And I would just send out an email, "Hey, does anybody need help?" Especially as a sub, like that is so good to do because teachers always need help, no matter what it is. And even if it's just, "Hey, can you come in and just watch? I have 30 students and I just need a helping hand." And you will always learn something. Maybe it's not always something that you want to do. Maybe it's something that you're like, I really like how they do that, but I think I would do this instead and try it out. I also learned in terms of students that sometimes, especially with bigger school districts, I will say it was hard for me originally to go from starting at Grand Valley where their class sizes, I mean, it was like 15 to 20, and other classes at this other district go up to 30 students. Or they have two teachers, so then it's like 60 students combined. And that was really hard for me to be like, okay, how am I supposed to handle this many students? But that school district came in and they said, "We know that you've never dealt with this many students before. How can we help you?" And after I got to learn from that and see, I'm like, oh, this is how they get it to work. And they're really, really good at it. And they all work together instead of against each other. And I think that is something that's so nice to have because every humans learn off of each other. They work together. 10 brains is better than one brain.
Yes, very much so. And I think that what you're describing is the ideal situation when you have an administration that expects their teachers to be learning and demanding in their own classroom. The principal's doing the same thing by taking time to learn about you and to help you through the process. That says a lot for the school and for the district to have that kind of support, from day one.
Yeah.
So that is then passed on to your teachers who do the same thing for their kids. It really is a cycle of kindness, really, to help each other succeed. I love
Yes,
that.
and I believe that happy teachers or happy adults in the building leads to happy students because they read off of us. And as we are the adults, they not envy us, but they want to go off of us. So if you have a teacher that walks in with a smile, they're going to go off of that and they're going to see that smile versus if you're like, this lesson isn't very fun but sometimes keeping it real though is very important too.
I love that you always have a qualifier for what you say. So just in case, well, you actually made a perfect segue because one of the things I wanted to ask you was, what is one of your favorite lessons that you've been involved with since you've started this whole process?
I would say I I really feel like each individual lesson has its own point. I will say though, I got to be a sub, and this was probably my favorite lesson. I was an intervention specialist, so I was working with another teacher and we got to co-teach, and it was math. And I'm not a math person, but I will say it wasn't even what we were doing. We were working on tables, and she was teaching them how to divide or whether you need to divide or you need to multiply to get the constant. And originally I was like, oh, I'm not very great at math. I'm going to help where I can, but I want to make sure, especially when I'm giving students answers, like and checking things, I want to 100% make sure with that teacher that it's correct. So we were working on this lesson and I didn't really know. I was also learning too, especially the material. And she already gave me an answer key, so I could figure out pretty much like, okay, how did she get that? And the way that she taught was she would sit at her desk and write on the iPad. And originally I was like, I don't know if I want to do that. I don't know if I want to move around, but that was just like from the beginning. And it was just like the first 5 minutes she would start and they would do like a warm up. And I get, especially with math, you 100% need to be writing on the board or on something so the students can see. But she used popsicle sticks. And I just saw so much engagement because students know if you're going to be picked, they want to know what you're talking about. And I do feel I originally had a really hard time with popsicle sticks because what if you're like, I'm a very anxious student, and what if you genuinely don't know? But the thing is, they have built such a good classroom that they will say, I'm not sure, I'm lost. And just because they got picked, that might be the only reason that they're admitting that they don't know what they're doing. So it does hold each student accountable for what they're doing. And they're able to say, can you skip me on this? I'm not really sure. Or can you pick me for a next one? And I felt like that relationship right there meant more because then when you build that relationship with students, you can see and you can help them learn more. So it was a math lesson. I'm not going to teach math, but just learning the different ways that she did it and she went about it. And she originally started, then she would write everything down, but then she would get up and she would let them try it. And she would walk around and she would help them. And then they would do mini games in between, mini math games to help them with the material. So it was like I do, we do, you do. And I love that format.
It's interesting you bring that up because the last time we talked, I was reading a book on how to be effective in questions. And what you described is exactly what this book was saying. And we value input from students, but we also value being right as teachers most of the time. So when a student doesn't know, how do you how do you get them to say why they don't know? Is it because they're shy? Is it because they truly don't know? They'll be embarrassed, whatever it may be. So this book that I'm reading, and I love this strategy, and it goes along with what you're saying. Every student has two questions to answer with every question. So if you say, what's the answer? And they give you the answer, the second question is, tell me how you thought about this to get the answer. So they have to
Mhm.
work through the process. And if they don't know, you can say the same thing. So if you don't know, tell me what you're thinking about this topic right now, and that will help you provide the specific feedback needed to help that student understand. So
Yeah.
I love that idea of, hey, especially the one, can I answer the next question? I love that.
Yeah.
That to me is a very good follow-up for a student to understand that I'm not embarrassed because I don't know, but I still want to participate. I love that. Awesome. So with this whole idea of your teaching and what you want, if you could pick the ideal job, what would it be? And what grade levels, what subjects, kind of setting would you like? All of that. What would you like?
So I do, in a perfect world, I do really love the 6 to 8 middle schools. I feel like that's prime middle school. However, though, I am in Chardon, like I said, for my student teaching, and they're a little bit different. They do 4 through 7 in their middle school. I am really excited to see how that works because I've never ever heard of that before, especially with 8th grade not being considered middle school. But I mean, Chardon's done it for a long time and it's worked out really good for them. So I'm excited to see, especially with the younger ones. I'm in grade 5. I do have a special heart for grade 5 because that was where I took my first substitute position. But I will say I've spent a lot of time at this larger district in just the building of 6 through 8, and I really like them. So I have no preference grade-wise. I feel like they definitely both have opportunities or pros and cons. Um, I did notice like with the older ones, they're a little bit, they want to test your limits, especially 8th grade. Like they're going into high school, they know they're not going to really see you much more, but they do still, no matter what they say, they do still care about what you think and how you feel about them and school and everything in general. In terms of school districts, I'm currently trying to figure that out because I have had the opportunity to be in so many school districts and I've found that there's so many pros to each school district and benefits and opportunities. So I really don't know if I want a small school district or a larger school district. Originally I did go in with the mindset that smaller school districts would be more community driven, but I found that that's not always the case. It really matters what area you're living. And also, as time goes on, if you're at the same district for 10 years, I'm sure you're going to see things change in the community and how the community helps or reacts or reflects especially with how much they get along with the school.
Right. I love the fact that you don't have a real answer on that one because it just leaves
Yeah.
you open to, what's the best opportunity for me and for the school? Because it is a relationship. It's what can I offer them, but what do they offer me as well? You have to keep that in mind in going into this. I love that answer. So I'm going to wrap this up. This is your first interview. So
Yeah.
um, this is your first interview, and I'm looking for, do you have any questions about going into the schools about anything that I could help you with? We've already talked, so I know that you have questions all the time. Um, but are there questions or concerns that you have, getting into this field now that you're at the end of the college career?
Yeah, I would say you did interviews before for candidates. So would you rather have somebody be honest or have somebody play the game? Like tell you memorize specifically what they think you want to hear.
I want them honest. I mean, and I've done this. I want to take this from both sides. As an administrator hiring people or in the hiring process, I want people to be honest because I have a role that I need to fill, and I want to do it with people that are honest, love kids, love being in the middle school setting, and all the other stuff to me is sort of, if you have it, great, but if you're a good person, you're a good person, and you're going to make this work for all of us.
Yeah.
If you're playing the game, I'm going to hire you with those pretenses in mind, or not knowing. And then when I ask you to do something, all of a sudden you can't do it or you won't do it. That's frustrating and it creates some tension in that relationship. And I've had that happen where somebody played the game and we were able to hire them and they said they wanted to do a certain amount of things and they wouldn't do them once they got hired. It's like, the credibility factor changes. And
Yeah.
not that I would hold that against them, but I just realized that they have a different agenda than what I thought,
Yeah.
and I have to work accordingly. So yes, honesty is always the best policy. And I've answered questions on the other side of it where I say, I don't know. I don't know how that would work. And, I'm willing to try to figure that out. One of my first job interviews after my initial job, because I moved around a lot. I can't keep a job. Um, it was a big school district, and the central office sent me to this middle school for an interview. And the first question I got was from the head of the science department, and he goes, "I see that you coach. So how can you give 100% of your time to teaching if you're coaching?" Well, at that time, I'm like, well, if I have two kids and I have a third one, I'm not going to not love and not do what I have to for the others. But I knew at that point that I wasn't getting the job because they wanted strictly a teaching person. So I just had fun in the rest of the interview because I realized, I'm not getting this one.
Yeah.
You know, but in that same regard, it taught me also that wasn't a fit for me anyway. If they don't want me to coach, and I
Yeah.
want to coach, then that's not a good situation. So that honesty made me feel validated in what I believe in and what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Granted, I didn't get the job, but I did find a job and I found one that fit. So
Yeah.
those are the types of things that it's a great question. Don't play the game.
Yeah.
You have to present yourself as who you are? Because do you want to fake who you are for the rest of that career? I mean,
Yeah.
it, I'm hiring you under an expectation. I expect that expectation to be met.
Yeah.
That's pretty simple. That's a great question, though, Madison. Good job. You're wise beyond your years. So with that, I am gonna wrap up the session. If you are looking for a quality candidate, you have one sitting right here in front of me. Madisyn Millikin is a great person, and this is based on my experience not only in the classroom that she's done, but how much she cares about the profession. And we've had a lot of heart-to-heart conversations about the future of education and her future in education and how the ideal isn't always there. It's something you have to work at and something you create. And I know that she is willing to put in the work and the time and the effort and the love to do this position as much as possible. And so if you're looking for a high quality middle school teacher, you have one sitting here in front of you. So I appreciate your time, Madisyn. Any final comments before I wrap this thing up?
No, thanks for having me.
You are the first one I've done this interview for, and I think it's a good one to sort of put out there just to help other people. See, there's other ways to get your name out there. I'm still not doing TikTok like you suggested. There's no way I'm going to be on TikTok. This is my speed right here. So, um, thank you, everyone, for joining us. Again, this is Madisyn. Madisyn is doing her student teaching this winter, spring semester for Kent State at Chardon Middle School. So right after that season is over, then, over the summer, if you're looking for somebody, she's going to be open for interviews and ready to go. So she'll be ready for the fall of 2026, which is pretty exciting. And I hope that, you take advantage of having a quality candidate interested in being a teacher. As always, as we wrap up, I want to tell you to be kind, be professional, and find solutions. Thank you very much, Madisyn.
Thank you.